because we're going to split his head open. So, maybe I'll start here. There are 3 salivary glands, and one of them is on the outside of the cheek. This is the parotid gland. Okay. Actually, you can see it maybe a little bit better on this side. More of it is exposed over here. This is the parotid gland. It is a salivary gland. You have 3 of them. I'm going to peel his little head off. So you have one salivary gland that sits anteriorly, just below the tongue. That is your sublingual salivary gland, sublingual gland. A little bit lower and a little bit more posterior, you're going to get the submandibular gland. And all 3 of those are salivary glands. All right? This entire region here is the nasal cavity. This is the oral cavity here. These 3 structures here make up the nasal conchae, or concha. These 3 are the nasal concha. As you inhale, air is going to go this way. This entire area from here to about here is the throat. Now, the throat has a special name in anatomy called the pharynx. That entire area is the pharynx. The pharynx has 3 different regions. The area at the top that is associated with the nose, or the nasal cavity, that is your nasopharynx. At the back of the oral cavity, you have this region of the pharynx, and it is called the O-R-O, oropharynx. And then as I travel down a little bit further, close to where it's going to branch off into the trachea and the esophagus, this area of the pharynx is called the laryngopharynx. From here, food is going to continue and go down the esophagus. Okay. If we end up maybe laughing while we're eating or something like that and end up accidentally choking or inhaling something, what happens is it can also, it's not supposed to, but at times it can go this way as well. This is the trachea. Technically we know it's the larynx and the trachea goes further. And this area right here, this is the epiglottis. So when you swallow, the epiglottis, it actually gets pushed down to cover the entrance to the trachea on a good day. And that's what we hope is going to happen. Okay? And your food is going to continue to go down. At this point, it's in the form of what's called a bolus. Alrighty. In order to get at some of his features here, we're going to have to peel him apart. So these are the lungs. The reddish area is the diaphragm. I'm taking off the lungs here. And the esophagus is going to go through the thoracic cavity. It's going to pass through the diaphragm, and it's going to enter into the abdominal cavity. In the abdominal cavity, you have these main structures. I'll go through those first before I start peeling them off. Okay. This is your liver. The liver sits somewhat on top of your stomach. This is your stomach here. All of this in gray is your large intestine, and all of this brownish, dirty stuff is small intestine. Okay, so far so good? Mm-hmm. All right, let's strip them a little bit more. I'm going to take off the liver. So here's the liver. There's really not much you need to know about the outside of it. All the good stuff that you need to know is here on the inside of the gallbladder, of the liver. Okay. So on the inside of the liver functions to make bile. This area here, this greenish thing down here, that is the gallbladder. So the liver is going to make the bile, the gallbladder is going to store it, and concentrate that bile. Now, in order for the bile to do work, it has to travel. And there's two different pathways that it travels. The bile that has been stored in the gallbladder is going to travel through the cystic duct, which is here. And you can kind of see because it looks like a continuation of the gallbladder itself. And eventually it's going to meet up with another pathway, and it's going to become the common bile duct. Okay? Bile, as I said before, is also made in the liver, and that bile can bypass the gallbladder altogether, and it doesn't need to make that stop. Okay? And that bile goes directly from the liver through the hepatic, which is here, okay? Goes through the hepatic duct, and then it's going to combine here with the cystic duct to form the common bile duct. Okay, not too bad, I hope. Here is my stomach. I'm going to go ahead and take out the stomach. We have another stomach that opens. Let me know if you see it anywhere. This one doesn't open, but there's only one structure on the inside that I need to show you. Okay, so it fits like this. So you notice that both of the entrances, the entrance and the exit here, kind of stick up. This is the point at which the esophagus is going to connect with the stomach. So the food, or the bolus of food, is going to come down the esophagus, and then it's going to go through this structure here to enter into the stomach. This is your cardiac sphincter. It's called cardiac because if you think about it, it lies pretty closely to your heart. Okay? So when they say that a way to the man's heart is through his stomach, there might be something to that, because it's actually a lot closer than people realize. God help me. Okay, so cardiac sphincter. It enters here, and the area that's just right around there is called the cardiac area, or the cardiac region. Region, right? Mm-hmm. Cardiac region. This arch here, just on the side, this is the fundus. Okay? The large section here, the bulk of the stomach, is the body region. That's the body region. And then as I start progressing over towards this way, you'll see kind of a little funnel. Where this starts to kind of funnel in, this becomes the pyloric region. And then the pyloric region is going to end at the pyloric sphincter. So the cardiac sphincter, when it relaxes, it allows food to enter the stomach. Once food is in the stomach, it starts churning. So we want to make sure that as it churns, that we don't end up with acid reflux and have all that stomach acid and food go up the esophagus. That's also why you get heartburn as well. So you want to make sure that it opens to allow food to come in, and then it closes and keeps the food down on a good day, like I said. Once the food is in here, it's going to mix with enzymes, and it's going to mix with hydrochloric acid and stomach acid, and it's going to end up making a paste called chyme. Okay? Once it's ready to move on, it's going to move here, and it's going to exit the pyloric sphincter. Now, once it exits the pyloric sphincter, it's going to go to the first section of the small intestine, which is the duodenum. Now, the duodenum here, this is part of the duodenum here. I'm going to temporarily move part of the large intestine here so we can see. So this is the other side of the pyloric valve. So you could say this is the pyloric valve as it enters the duodenum, which would be all of this area and even maybe slightly beyond where you can see here. Okay. So all of that area is the duodenum. This would be the pyloric. And I would also say if someone's pointing here, you would want to call that the pyloric as well. All right. The is where most of your digestion occurs. All that bile that I talked about that's coming from the liver is going to end up here in the duodenum. Okay? 90% of digestion and absorption is going to occur in this duodenum. This area here, this triangular area, this whole thing that I'm pointing to here is the pancreas. This entire thing here is the pancreas. This line right here is the pancreatic duct. Okay? Now what the pancreas does is the pancreas has, it makes a bunch of wonderful digestive enzymes, and those digestive enzymes are going to be shipped out through the pancreatic duct, and they're going to land in the duodenum. So this is why the duodenum is such a hot spot for digestion, because this is the bile, the enzymes, all that great stuff is there. Now once you end up getting to, all of this is also the small intestines. All of this area on top would be considered jejunum, which is the first, you have the duodenum, and then after the duodenum you get into the jejunum. Okay. The jejunum makes up about half of this entire region. This region on top would be jejunum, and then on the side here would be jejunum. Okay. There's no clear separation between the jejunum and the next segment or last segment of the small intestine, which is the ileum. The ileum is around this area here, and the ileum, like I said, is the last section of the small intestine. Okay, so I'm going to now take off the small intestine. For now, I'm going to put him back on. Okay. The entire region here that is in gray is the large intestine. From the small intestine, the chyme is then going to enter into the large intestine through the ileocecal valve. The ileocecal valve, in this particular one, this is part of it. It's actually going to come just through this structure, the ileocecal valve. Okay. This entire area right here that's been peeled away so you can see it, this is the cecum. The cecum is the first area of the large intestine. All right. You have this weird green finger-like thing that's like just hanging down here. This is your appendix. The appendix, they used to call it a vestigial organ because we believe it had enzymes that allowed us to eat cellulose. But now we believe it has more of an immune function. So this is the appendix. So this is the cecum again. And from the cecum, the food is then going to travel up. Since it's traveling upward, that's why we call this the ascending colon. Okay? This is the ascending colon. From here, it's going to travel across, which is why we call it the transverse colon. And then it's going to travel down. So we're going to call this area the descending colon. Okay, the descending colon. Now there's one more section of colon, and it kind of starts from about here, but it's better visualized if I take him apart a little bit more. So I'm going to take off the transverse colon, and now I'm going to remove this whole area here. The sigmoid colon is actually better viewed from behind. But on the front, I would believe if somebody points around here or lower, that would be the sigmoid colon. Okay? But on the back, you can really see where it gets its name from. Okay. Well, I guess if I do it like this too, but when it's sitting in the body, it's kind of hard to tell. Okay. But you can see here how it's got that nice S shape. Now, this is the sigmoid colon right there. Around here, where it starts to, it's off at an angle, but it's still straight. From here to here, that is your rectum. From here to here. It's where the colon basically straightens out and is not turning anymore. This brown part here is the anal canal. This model, as well as most models, I guess they don't want to put a belt hole on it. I don't know why. God, I can just see this on YouTube now. But the anal sphincter would actually be here, or that you could call that the anus. but it would be a little chunk of muscle there that's just there waiting. And I love how they chose brown. We can go ahead and imagine why that was the case. Okay, and that's all she wrote.